So I'm going to talk about the performer style, ENTP and ENFP. This one is near and dear to my heart because I happen to be a performer. I'm an ENTP in Myers-Briggs language. And so I've got lots of personal firsthand experience with this. Also have a daughter who shares this style with me and my aunt as well. So lots of experiences and lots of stories that I can tell you from both sides of the perspective, lots of clients that I've worked with as well with this particular style. The first thing I want to talk about is predominant needs. Now, if you've been with us for a while, again, you've heard us use this term a lot. Our predominant needs, these are psychological needs. Each of us has them. They are hardwired into us based on our personality. So it's not something we can ignore. It's not something we can neglect, because when we do, our level of satisfaction decreases dramatically. We don't feel safe. We don't feel secure. We can't pursue our potential. So for us in life, in order to really feel that sense of fulfillment, happiness, to be able to go after our potential, it is very much about understanding these needs, how these needs are in us, and how the predictable patterns of behavior that emerge in us as a result of the need to get these needs met, essentially. All of our behavior moves in the direction of getting these needs met. And they must be met for us to grow, for us to develop into the person we are meant to be. But they also, more importantly, must be met in order for us to feel satisfied, truly satisfied, and really thrive in our relationships. When these needs are not met, what happens is it causes us to be self-protective, and it keeps us living in our imposter syndrome persona or out of the self-protective system of our brain, and it really truly gets in the way of our happiness, right? And our relationship style also is tied into that, because it's all based on our personality. And each one of us has a predominant relationship style that is tied to our personality organization, how our brains are organized. And each one of those relationship styles has very specific, unique satisfiers and dissatisfiers. So understanding what is unique to us in terms of based on our personality that will be satisfying to us, and those things that are, if they are in our dissatisfier list and they are present for us, it is automatically going to cause us to feel dissatisfied, distressed, unhappy, and shift us into the self-protective system when it comes to our relationships. We strive to get our needs met through our relationships, through communication, how we work on conflict, romance, and intimacy as well. And for all of us, there are unconscious patterns of behavior that we use to get our needs met in our relationships. These are predictable. And the predictability of these patterns of behavior also allows us to look at it through when we are using these patterns of behavior. It can be towards, again, self-actualizing, our happiness, our fulfillment. But our self-protective patterns of behavior can actually contribute to dissatisfaction and leave us feeling locked in or powerless to do anything about our relationships, because we don't understand kind of why we're feeling the way we are, or what specifically it is that we need to change. And again, notice we need to change, not necessarily pointing the finger at it being anyone else's responsibility. So let's talk about the performer, ENTP, ENFP. Again, right rational brain, it's the envisioning function. Now, the predominant need for this group is to be recognized, okay? The need to be recognized. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. But I do often find, if you happen to be a performer, I do often find a lot of folks, when they see this or hear this for the first time, they think, oh no, but I don't like to be the center of attention, or I don't like to be up on a stage. And it's not so much that, as much as it is how it is that in our own lives, we perform out what is going on for us, that we have a need. We really, if we're truly honest with ourselves, there is an underlying need in us to be the star. And I say us because, as I said earlier, I am one. So it's not about just doing things. It really is about performing them, that need to be seen, to really be seen, to be recognized, to feel special, right? In any and every context that we're operating within. It's the reason why I always have the best Halloween display on my block, the best Christmas display on my block. It is that creating, right? It's the performing our experiences, because it allows the world to see and to appreciate what it is that we're bringing forth. We're very quick. This style is very quick to entertain, to engage with really contagious enthusiasm, and they can be exceptionally charming, right? Really charming, influential. And the way they speak is kind of a stream of consciousness, right? So it just keeps flowing. And in fact, they will often start on the next topic before they've even finished the last one. They're very achievement oriented, very goal oriented. And so because of that, they can kind of seem like a different person depending on who they're with. And again, this is very much about their adapting in order to be what others want, playing that role of what they believe others expect of them. They really do enjoy being the center of attention. And again, it doesn't mean being up on stage necessarily, but really loving to stand out. And in fact, performers would rather not be in a group, be in a social group, be on the outside of a social group, or not participate in an activity than just be one of the crowd, or not being able to be the star or be able to win. I remember watching this with my daughter as she was growing up, where normally very sort of active and willing to engage in all kinds of sports, very athletic, but if she was encountering something new and if she didn't know that she could be the best or she could win at whatever the activity was, she would stay on the sideline and observe until she figured out how she could put herself into it and get that need to be the star, and get that need to be the star met, right? And in the activity that she was pursuing. This, of all of the styles, of all of the personalities, this one is most dependent on other people in order to get the need met, because essentially they need an audience to perform for. And they're always looking for audiences and seeking out different and varied audiences. And when they're stuck with the same audience over and over again, it can become very dissatisfying. If you think about Oprah is this style, and she just kept making her audience bigger and bigger, right? So local news, into talk show, into, ultimately her own network, right? And so that growth of the audience, adding in a magazine, always expanding that audience in order to be kind of in that place of being the star. They're very image driven, so how they look, what they wear, how they present themselves, all very important to them. And again, they have a natural ability to kind of get in there and influence, but we also say they're very flirtatious, right? And that's part of that sort of charming, image driven, attracting certain types of people to them at all times. And they can be very generous, extremely generous, all in part of being seen in a particular way. And they have remarkable insights into people, which that it's their ability to read people and to read situations that also helps them in order to perform in whatever context it is that they're operating out of. Okay. Now, when we look at the things that dissatisfy these folks, you probably get a sense from some of the things I said was a key aspect of their relationship style. Now, need dissatisfiers, just so that everybody's clear what I'm talking about, are the kinds of interactions, conversations, or activities that you have with others that actually thwart the need, that get in the way of being able to get your innate psychological need met. And that means it makes it hard to experience satisfaction when some of all of these need dissatisfiers are present in your relationships again. And this is at work, at home, in your personal life, with your family, with your children, or your children with you, right? Because as parents, sometimes when we don't understand the psychological need that's driving our children, we can accidentally thwart their need and get in their way of feeling satisfied in the relationships. And then we get all kinds of temper tantrums and bad behavior from them, right? Because if present, when need dissatisfiers are present, we're easily irritated, depressed, angered, frustrated. We find fault, we pick fights, we engage in what we call non-productive or self-protective behaviors, and we direct our energy towards getting our need met in whatever way we possibly can. When it comes to the performer, we say they will be the best of the best or they will be the worst of the worst. Either way, they're going to get recognition, right? And so if they're not getting productive and positive attention, then they are going to seek out and misbehave and act in ways to draw negative attention, because any attention is better than no attention, because that meets their need to be recognized. And you can probably think of some examples in your life. I know I've certainly seen it in mine with clients, with kids, with family members across the way, where we shifting into that place of, well, if I can't win, then I'm going to go after sort of that worst of the worst scenario. So the need dissatisfiers for performers, for ENTPs and ENFPs, are pretty straightforward. Competition with someone else for center stage. They do not do well in relationships with people who have that same need to be center stage, who have the same need to be in the spotlight, who have the same need to be the star and to be recognized. And again, because they, frustrating that frustration of the need and that competition that goes on can create a lot of problems in a relationship, again, both at work and at home, unless people have kind of their own stage on which they are competing. People who rain on their parade, people who say to them that they're dreaming too big, that they're, that they're being unrealistic, or, who do you think you are? Those sorts of things are really, really frustrating and dissatisfying to the performer because they dream big. They don't want to live, what we call a small life. And in fact, they will use food and alcohol, again, of all of the styles, they're going to use food and alcohol to make them feel the way they want to feel when they're just working in survival mode or when they're being self-protective, because if they can't get that recognition, then they're going to self-medicate or self-soothe in order to create that feeling in themselves, okay? And the last one, the third dissatisfier, is being criticized for seeking attention. So if you think about it, like, this is an appetite, and this is an appetite as real to us, these psychological needs, as real to us as hunger and sleep and thirst, right? The need has to be met. And others will criticize people who are, always seeking the spotlight or holding court or, whatever it is where it draws a judgment against them. And so again, they will then end up seeking negative attention if that's the only way that they can get recognized or attention, okay? So this will shift them when those need dissatisfiers are present. It's going to shift this style into self-protective behavior. And there's a couple of things that you can watch for to know if you yourself, if this is your style, have shifted into self-protective behavior, or if you're in a relationship with somebody with this style. These are the clues to watch for that will indicate that their needs are not being met, that they're being frustrated, and so they've shifted into self-protective behavior. First and foremost is that lacking of intimacy in the relationships and that withdrawal. You'll notice a withdrawal or movement away, becoming unavailable if there's interpersonal conflict, or they'll become overly self-focused, or they'll go focused outward rather than deal with what may be going on. They'll find other places to go to play to feel special because they're not getting that need met at home, or same with at work. They might change jobs. They might go join professional organizations, seek out leadership roles in other places in order to get that need met, and then withdraw from the existing situation. We had one client of ours who had a senior executive who essentially did that, was not feeling recognized and valued by the organization, so started going out and creating all of these other opportunities in the marketplace, and essentially was not doing their primary job because it wasn't satisfying to them. And so in the end, they got moved out, but it was the best thing for them because they were actually able to go create an environment for themselves where they could be recognized for what it was that they were really good at, and they could feel special in a way that they weren't within that organization, where they weren't being valued for some of the things they were bringing. This style wants to be admired, so they will engage in attention-seeking behavior. That could include flirting, that could include sort of pushing some of those boundaries without really understanding the impact on others. It could include, sharing things so that people will see them in a particular light that they shouldn't be sharing. So it's just sort of being aware of the fact that when they are self-protective, they are going to shift even more into those admiring, or things that will get them admire, or will draw a certain kind of attention to them. They'll overextend themselves. They will be seen as lacking focus, scattered, chaotic, so like all over the place. And I think of my one client, I can always tell when she's in self-protective mode because she's carrying piles of things and she's always running in late, and she's an incredibly high producer, incredibly bright, but again, it's just how it gets projected. And again, there is an aspect of attention seeking that comes with that, because they're performing the role or performing the state of what's going on in their lives at that moment. They can be convinced of their specialness, and so feel like chores and self-care beneath them. I'm guilty of that one, and I recognize it every time I'm sort of at home and it's time for dinner to be cooked, or it's time for something to be cleaned up, and it's sort of I hang back a little bit waiting to see if, okay, yeah, I have to do it, right? So it's just that it's not easy for us to step in those places. And first, I will admit that I am the first to offload, outsource any of those sorts of activities rather than necessarily expecting my spouse to do it. But it is really important when I'm in that position, and I've always been able to do that, which is fortunate for me because I've always prioritized it, knowing that about myself. Those are not things that I necessarily derive a lot of satisfaction from, and being okay with that. I remember when I first did it, I didn't have kids, and I hired a housekeeper, and you know, people judging me for it, but it actually was in my best interest to do that. I worked a lot of hours, I traveled a fair bit at the time, and it actually created a better circumstance for my husband and I, because there wasn't any conflict over who was going to do it, because he also traveled, didn't work quite the same hours that I did, but he also did travel periodically. And so this was just also a way of us problem solving that conflict. But it was a recognition that this is something that I would, if I could, always outsource it to somebody else. Okay. Sometimes with this style, as achievement oriented as they are, they can actually fail to set goals for themselves and just end up, you know, sort of bouncing from opportunity to opportunity. And that's really important to understand. And that's one of the ways in which, when we're being self-protective, we can really get in the way of our own potential, especially as performers. And last but not least, doing things to get the approval of others at the expense of our own or the needs of others. And I've seen this. I've seen people overextending themselves financially in order to kind of have nice things and to be able to go to nice places and have nice experiences. You know, I've seen them where they have, you know, been very judgmental about, you know, or talked about, you know, you can think about some of those people where they go and they talk about all the things they've done and play in order to, again, project this certain persona around being successful without really thinking about, are they getting their need met, and what is this doing for the other people around them. Okay. So let me leave you off with a couple of tips here. First and foremost, if you're in a relationship with a performer, you gotta allow them to be who they are being. Sorry, you gotta allow them to be who they are, right? And who they are meant to be. So without criticism, without judgment, without competition, really allowing them to, you know, be in that place. They have the need to be center stage, providing with them with the opportunities for that. And again, without criticism, without judgment, without trying to hold them back, right? And really stepping into that place of recognizing when they've achieved something, right? And it can be something small, it can be something big, but doing that recognition, doing the celebrations, doing things that actively make them feel special, whether it's just, and it doesn't have to be big things, but even that noticing how they're dressed or what they're wearing, or, you know, the fact that they've gotten their hair cut, you know, appreciating how they look, appreciating what they do for you. All of those things add up into it. And so the performer has a really hard time when they're simply, when they feel invisible, or when they feel like they're being neglected or taken for granted, right? Because again, doesn't meet our need to be recognized. Negotiate with them around some of those practical routine chores that you might share with them, okay? So that it's very clear sort of who's doing what and how you're balancing that out, especially if you find that you feel like you're pulling up sort of too much of the load, and you know, sort of you want to get that balance. Just negotiate it. What would that look like? Or find that alternate solution if you can, like I've done, and I know others like me do, and not feeling like they have to do it, right? That's a judgment, and sort of saying, what can we do and what are we willing to trade off for that? As I said, finding occasions, birthdays, you know, great things, Christmas, you know, those are all really important things. And that experience they have, again, feeling like they've been treated as though they are special, that they're being recognized for being special, is all a really important part of it. And it's not to put pressure on you from that place of it has to be perfect, but really making them feel like you know them, you understand them, that you hear what they've said. They will usually give you clues and hints and tips. If you just pay attention to it, because they're not afraid to share that or to communicate that out, but they can be really disappointed when they get nothing, or there's nothing that is celebrated, right? And again, that's a real dissatisfier in that relationship. And last but not least, it's to spend time dreaming with them. So again, the performer, right, rational brain, it's the envisioning function, the ability to see what has not yet happened, the ability to see the possibilities. They naturally dream big, right? And big can be, you know, travel, it can be house, can be luxury, can be all of those things. It can be career, but they dream big. And so instead of going into the conversation about these dreams and what they're seeing in their mind as not being possible or not being realistic, or we can't afford it, or that'll never happen, go in and play with it. Play with the dream. Think about, well, if I can't get to there now, when can we get to there? And how might we make that happen? And can we do it on a modified version? You know, find out what it means. There is nothing more satisfying to a performer when the people around them step in and play with those ideas and support those dreams. And again, it may take us longer to get to them, but the fact is that we're feeling supported and not being criticized or judged or ridiculed for the fact that our view, again, our intuitive view is so big and so huge. Performers live large or be large, right? Is what we always say about them. And so they have a need to have a life that is not small. And so if you are a performer and you are living small in your relationships and in your life, I really encourage you to reach out to us, talk to us a little bit more, find out more about this personality style, and find out how you can move from living out of your survival or your self-protective system to really being able to power up your innate potential, because it's all there. It's all in your fingertips or in your mind, in the mechanics of your mind. And so you have everything you need to achieve your potential, and we would love to work with you directly through any one of our programs or individually to help you to get to that place where you are becoming who you are meant to be.